Today's episode of the Patient First podcast, we're going to learn why one dental practice had to pay an $80,000 fee because a patient asked to have their records. Well, today's podcast is also probably brought to you by Toothapps, toothapps.com, where we are creating connected dentistry, freeing dentists and patients out of the data prisons that they're currently in and giving both dental practices and dental patients access to the data that they legally own and need to do the best quality dental care available. Toothapps.com. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Patient First podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Bryan Laskin, and I am really excited today to talk to you about a case, several cases actually, a few cases that have come about to really talk about putting patients first. And it is a press release that I'm going to read through. And as always, if you've listened to one of these podcasts where I read something before, I'm going to give you my take as we go through this press release. Now, sounds really boring, but actually it's incredibly exciting. And I only read something like this if I think it's very pertinent to what we are talking about in dentistry today. And this press release is by the OCR that settled 3 cases with dental practices for patients' right of access under HIPAA. Goes on to say enforcement actions ensure patients receive timely access to their records at a reasonable cost. Now, this is federal regulation, and this is why I want to talk about it today. Because for the dentist out there, this is problematic because, as my opinion, as you'll find out, this is impossible, frankly, if you're not on Toothapps. Sounds self-serving because I have Toothapps, but this is one of the reasons why we created connected dentistry, because right now I believe it is difficult, if not impossible, to actually comply with federal regulation. Now there's sort of outs, there's exceptions. If it's not possible, then you're not held liable. But these types of cases are increasing in nature. So if you're a patient, know that dentists are under the gun for this because of the information blocking practices that have been going on in dentistry that we at Toothapps are fighting hard to tear down the walls, the prisons that are holding the patient's data. Remember, again, I've talked about it a lot on this podcast because it's very much my focus right now is to get patients access to their records, their dental records, because legally it's our patients. We as dentists are stewards of the data and we need this data. We can't, if we don't have the information, we can't diagnose and treat patients effectively, right? So I'm going to go on and talk about why this is so important. And this is detailing some cases that the Office of Civil Rights, or the OCR, had settled with some dental patients based on some things that I think every single dentist and every single patient that is looking to get access to their records, it's problematic today. So I'm going to go on and read this press release. Today, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or HHS, Office of Civil Rights, OCR, announced the resolution of 3 investigations concerning potential violations of the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, privacy rules, patient rights of access provision. These cases are part of a collective effort, bringing the total to 41 cases. Okay, this is back from, I believe this was September of last year. Yes, it was. In September of last year, there were 41 cases, and these are going up if you Google it, to drive compliance on right of access under the law. Here's a quote. These 3 right of access actions send an important message to dental practices of all sizes that are covered by the HIPAA rules. That's every dental practice, by the way, to ensure that they are following the law, said OCR Director Melanie Fontes Rainier. Patients have a fundamental right under HIPAA, I'm continuing the quote, to receive their requested medical records in most cases within 30 days. I hope that these actions send the message of compliance, and this podcast too, so that patients do not have to file a complaint. These are patients that had to, again, a sidebar, file the complaint with the OCR. Not every patient that hasn't had their, these are the ones that went to the OCR and filed the complaint. So that I continue. Patients did not have to file a complaint with the OCR to have their medical records request fulfilled. OCR has taken the following enforcement actions that underscore the importance and necessity of compliance with HIPAA rules. These are HIPAA rules, another sidebar, not even the Cures Act, information blocking, which is a whole another set of regulations that went into effect after this press release in October. So these cases are going to be exploding, and the fines with the Information Blocking Act is up to $1 million per incident. So I go on, including the fundamental access of a fundamental right of access provision. So here's the detailing of the cases. Family Dental Care, PC, which is located in Chicago. And again, I'm saying these names because it's a press release, and I'm reading the whole press release. I do not even fault these dental offices because the information blocking practices, that, which the OCR doesn't understand what's going on in dentistry. They're looking at medicine, which is kind of fixed to solve this problem. We're fixing the problem in dentistry through Toothapps. But today, if you're not on Toothapps, I believe it's impossible to comply with this. So I go on. Family Dental Care PC, located in Chicago, Illinois. OCR received a complaint on August 8th, 2020, alleging that FDC failed to provide a former patient with timely access to her complete medical records. Another sidebar. What's a complete medical record in dentistry? Is it radiographs? Yes. Is radiographs part of your medical history, your practice management software? No. What about a CT scan or an Invisalign scan or forms that didn't write back to because that practice management software didn't allow a write back integration with your forms product or your recall system? These are all part of the medical records that is impossible or virtually impossible for a dental practice to even get. Okay, so I'm continuing. The former patient requested that her entire medical records in May 2020, but received only portions. Again, only portions. Can you give your patient, if you're a dentist, their entire record today? Think about it. The former patient filed a complaint with OCR, and during OCR's investigation, FTC provided her with the remainder of her records in October 2020. Thus, FTC did not provide a complete copy of the records until more than 5 months after the request was made. Okay. 5 months. Why? Because it's a pain in the ass, right? If it's almost impossible. And we're trying our best to break down those walls at Toothapps. And again, if there's we can only do so much. We have to have the providers on the other side who have the information to be able to allow us to get access to it. So we need patients, we need dentists on board with this mission. I continue. OCR's investigation determined that FDC's failure to provide timely access to the requested medical records was a potential violation of the HIPAA right of access provision. FDC, this is a settlement again, agreed to pay $30,000 and implement a corrective action plan. Okay, so $30,000 to give access to information that they pretty much is impossible for them to get access to for the patient without plugging into Toothapps. Case study number 2. Great Expressions Dental Care of Georgia PC. Again, this is not sidebar, not an indictment of them because this is a failure of our industry, but in particular, the people that create the dental records not giving you, the dentist, and the patient direct access to that information. That is the problem, not these dental practices. Opinion, but a strong one. Okay, Great Inspections Dental Care of Georgia is a dental and orthodontic provider with multiple locations throughout the state of Georgia. In November 2020, OCR received a complaint alleging that this practice would not provide an individual with copies of her medical records because she would not pay the $170 copying fee. The individual first requested her records in November 2019, but did not receive them until February 2021, over a year later. OCR's investigation determined that this practice's failure to provide timely access to the requested medical records and its practice of assessing copying fees that were not reasonable and cost based. Sidebar: $170 is not reasonable. Okay. That practice probably pays $50 per month for all of the point solutions that go into integrated with their practice management software. So if you have 4 of them, you're paying $200 a month just for a software solution to have information that is the patient's legally and you're the steward of, and you're paying that. Is that reasonable? I say no. I say no, unreasonable. $170 one-time fee to get access to your records is unreasonable. How about $200 every month for a dentist to supply information for information that is theirs? Anyway, I go a whole nother talk show. Were potentially violation of the HIPAA right of access provision. This practice agreed to pay $80,000 and implement a corrective action plan. That hurts. Then B. Stephen L. Hardy, DDS Ltd., doing business as Paradise Family Dental, is a dental practice in Las Vegas, Nevada. On October 26th, 2020, notice these were all October 2020. So my guess is these practices, the OCR was just like, well, let's just make an example of three that are sitting on top of the pile today. You could be in that pile. On October 26, 2020, OCR received a complaint alleging that Paradise had failed to provide a mother with copies of her and her minor child's protected health information. The mother submitted multiple record requests between April 11th, 2020 and December 4th, 2020, but Paradise, shocker, did not send the records until December 31st, 2020, more than 8 months after her initial request, because it's a pain in the ass. Again, not part of the, not part of the press release. OCR's investigation determined that Paradise's failure to provide timely access to the requested medical records was a potential violation of the HIPAA right of access provision. Paradise agreed to pay $25,000 and implement a corrective action plan. I'd love to see what's the corrective action plan, because it's probably not plug into Toothapps so that we can give patients access through their data. But I digress. That corrective action plan is probably like figure out how to get the information from our multiple solutions that have the medical records. Maybe. I don't think it's easy. I'm not saying it lightly. I think it's next to impossible today. If a patient comes to your practice and says, I'd like my complete dental records, think about what they're asking for and can you give it to them, and how big of a pain in the ass is it? Because now, my friends, the Cures Act, information blocking rules, this is becoming a much, much, much more popular issue. Patients have my chart on the medical side. They're going to have my Toothapps on the dental side so that they can get access to their dental records. My chart, the people have access in medicine for a lot of the EMRs, the electronic medical records, so they can pull up their information. They're going to expect in dentistry, and they should. They should. It's their right. It's their data, right? If you move from Wisconsin to California, your medical record should be for you to give to that next provider because you give access to. That's what we're doing at Toothapps. Anyway, I digress because this is $80,000 fine. I mean, come on. Anyway, go on. OCA's guidance on the right of access is available at their hhs.gov. I won't go through the entire URL. Individuals who believe their HIPAA rights have been violated have a right to file a complaint. And there's also a link on hhs.gov. So that's the entire press release. But I wanted to point this out because these are just three dental practices that charging $170 might seem unreasonable, but I don't think it's unusual to have, like, if you have like a per page fee and you want to print out, you have to print out your entire patient's dental records, because the only way your practice management software allows you to do it is by printing off a PDF. What the hell? Sorry, I'm mad because I feel passionately about this topic. Again, this is a big issue. This is not the OCR, the HHS, in my opinion, doing anything wrong. What they're trying to do, though, is they're trying to point out the problem in dentistry, that patients don't have access to their data. The thing that the OCR isn't seeing is that dentists don't either. That's the major problem. That's what we're fixing at Toothapps. Let's give both dental practices and dental patients access to their entire dental record so we can elevate care and avoid these fees. This is good work that the OCR and the HHS is doing. And what they're doing now with the Cures Act, the information blocking rules, the information blocking rule, which went live October 6th, 2022, after this press release, makes it so that a software vendor, your practice management vendor, your CAD CAM system vendor, cannot legally block the dentist to have access, can't block Toothapps from having access to that data, such that we can give that information access to the patient and to dental practices. Okay. This press release highlights these cases. Now, Obviously, I'm passionate about the topic, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are on this topic. I think it's philosophically wrong, frankly. I don't know the entirety of these. All I know is what I just read to you, but I feel like these dental practices kind of got screwed, not by the OCR, but by their software vendors who make it so difficult to give patients access, the right to access under HIPAA, and now under the Cures Act. So let me know your thoughts. If you like this, subscribe. We're going to be talking a lot more about topics like this, patients' access to care, as we continue on the work at Toothapps to make that happen. And if you think that patients don't have a right to their legally owned data, I'd love to hear that too. So thanks for joining me. And of course, I look forward to seeing you right here next week on the Patient First Podcast.